this situation where both parents are...
Actually, I'm sorry, 3 of the children are still...
3 of the children are minors.
They're not minors. One is under 18. About 3 of the children are going to school.
Okay. What is going to be their future? I mean, I know you're defending Mahendra Sabnani and you're defending Varsha. What happens to these young kids? I mean, psychologically, it's devastating.
Psychologically, it's devastating because they know the truth, and they have difficulty understanding why their parents are being treated like this. And of course, going to school, neighborhoods, friends, etc., they have to put up with the impact of this terrible negative publicity. So this is a major blow. You know, they're all fighting hard. It's a good thing that Amanda is still home because he's trying to keep the family strong. But you know, if he is sentenced to prison, the family is going to be in a very difficult situation.
And I've seen a website of Pooja Sabnani, their daughter, who has appealed to the community that if you know the couple, if you know their father and mother, Varsha and Mahendra, write out letters to Judge Arthur Spat and tell him how you feel, how he is. And they wanted actually 1,000 letters. It's in their website if you Google Pooja Sabnani. At this point of time, what would be your message to the viewers over here and how they can actually get themselves involved in this case?
Well, I would put it this way, and I think oftentimes more important than lawyers, more important than lawyers nitpicking at the law is the reality of life and common sense. My wife met and has spent some time with not only Varsha, but with the kids. And as she turned to me one day and said, "You can't raise kids like this, terrific kids like this, and be the kind of person the newspapers are saying Varsha is." And I think that people who know Varsha and have spent time with Varsha and know that she can't be that kind of person because they know her, they've spent the time with her, they should send in letters and explain exactly what they know about her as a human being, because that is a very important part of what a judge has to look at sentencing.
As to Mahendra, it's remarkable that given all of this negative publicity, he's been able to run his business. And the reason is because the people who do business with him know that he's an honest person and would never cheat anybody and would never do something that's negative. And so the one favorable thing is that the people who know him continue to do business with him, and they certainly wouldn't do that if they thought he was the monster that the newspapers have created.
I see. Now, I mean, they were charged with 12 counts, and through this newfound evidence, or the one that you're bringing out in the appeal, do you feel that you can reduce the sentencing by reducing the counts?
Well, it doesn't quite work that way. The sentencing goes forward based on these counts. Okay. And we're very hopeful that the sentencing will be appropriate and nothing like the crazy sentences that have been suggested by the government.
40 years, 30 years, life?
I mean, it's ridiculous. We've seen, unfortunately, in our society, you know, the United States has more people in prison than any other country, which is a very scary figure to be aware of. And we've seen people who have really hurt other human beings so that they couldn't live a life going forward. They've maimed them. They've done physical damage, right up to murder, manslaughter, where lives are taken. And you see sentences of 4 years and 5 years and 7 years. And nothing like that happened in this case, even giving the jury verdict, if you want to say it was accurate for purposes of this argument. And so to be putting forth sentences of that nature is beyond anything I've ever seen. It's just unbelievable. And we're hoping that the court will give an appropriate sentence based on the conviction. We think an appropriate sentence would be 0 because we don't think the conviction should be. But since there is one, that it would be an appropriate sentence. And if it is not, then we would look to the Court of Appeals to change that, as well as to overturn the case.
Like you said, people who committed manslaughter, homicide, I mean, their sentencing is not that much. And a lot of people are anticipating, you know, they're anxious about this trial, you know, and the sentencing and what's going to happen, what the future is for this couple. What do you see for Mahendra Sabnani this time?
Well, first, I don't blame people for being apprehensive. I don't blame people in the Indian community for being frightened, because here's a man who came to this country and did all the right things, worked hard and continues to work hard, raised a family, and now all of a sudden everything's being taken away from him. And, you know, his wife is being thrown in jail. He may be thrown in jail. His kids are going to be left here. I mean, it's a frightening situation. I mean, if it could happen to them, it could happen to really anybody. And it's frustrating, because a person
That's
like...
scary too.
Yeah.
It is scary, because a
it
lot of
is.
people now are getting worried if they're getting their mates, you know, that
Right.
something can happen, you know.
Right, like, sure. Somebody accuses you of doing something, and the next thing you know, you're in the same boat as Mahendra Sabnani. So they're really frightened. You know, at times Mahendra has spoken about the fear for his own children. You know, what do I want them to continue to live in this country? If this could happen to me, it could happen to them. So there is this tremendous, tremendous fear. I mean, in Mahendra's case, there was no accusation at all that he ever touched any of the maids or ever said anything negative to him. And the maids all said he was a good person. They kept saying he's a good person, and yet here he is facing all these years. And, you know, I believe that the judge will be fair. I believe the judge will reject these outrageous claims by the government that the sentence should be so long. I hope so. And I think that if these sentences are that long, that the people in the Indian community are going to be even more frightened and wonder, you know, what's out there for them should they find themselves in a situation where somebody accuses them. I mean, I would be frightened to death. You know?
And Mr. Hoffman, what's your read? What's going to happen the next couple of months?
Well, we're going to have the sentencing, and I hope it'll be a fair sentence, and I expect it will. And then we're going to go forward with the appeal. And the appellate process will probably take somewhere around 6-8 months. And I hope that as a result of that process, we'll get the results that we're asking for, which would be a new trial, free of all this horrific publicity, and the appropriate result from such a trial.
And when is the sentencing for Varsha Sabnani? May? Or
I think it's May 30th.
May 30th?
May
If I remember
30th for
correctly.
Varsha.
13th?
3-0.
30th. And for Mahendra Sabnani?
I believe it's June 3rd.
June 3rd.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have you come back again, keep us updated as to what's happening with this case. Varsha Sabnani's sentencing takes place on May 30th, and Mahendra Sabnani's on June 3rd. And the attorneys for both of them are going to be fighting for them and making an appeal, and we'll keep you updated on the Sabnani case. Today my guests were Jeffrey Hoffman, representing Varsha Sabnani, and attorney Stephen Scaring, representing Mahendra Sabnani. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm Renee Lobo. Thank you for watching the Renee Lobo Report.